Hey guys, it's Ted Gravlin with the video tip of the day. So this one comes from a conversation that I was watching yesterday on a Facebook group. And actually I'm going to kind of combine that with another conversation that I had personally with some folks this week on the phone. But the conversation on the Facebook group was a guy posted, hey, here's one of my invoices and what do you guys think about how I charged for this and what would you charge? And it kind of started comparing. Well, then it started this big old long thread of everybody chiming in with how they should do it or how he should do it and all this stuff. So it turns out there's probably a lot of people doing it the way this guy was doing it. So we're going to talk about that. And if you're doing that, we're going to talk about why it just doesn't work in the long term to have a business, whether you want to grow or not. Because part of his thing was, well, it's just me and I don't really want to grow. I just want to do my business and my wife just works in my office and that's just happy. We're happy with that. But let's look at it from a true business standpoint and see why that doesn't work and why he shouldn't be doing that. Okay. So what he said he was doing is he was taking his parts cost times 2, and then he was charging $85 an hour. So first question I always have when I talk to someone live on the phone is I ask them how they're setting prices. And I hear this kind of stuff a lot. It may not be exactly this, but it's something like, I take my parts times some number, and then I hear some number of your hourly rate, right? And then my question is, how in the heck did you decide that those were the numbers? Who told you, or how did you come to the conclusion that that's the way you're supposed to do it? And I hear all kinds of stuff like, I hear, well, that's the going rate around here. That's how everyone does it. I hear that one a lot. I hear that some guy at the supply house told me at the counter, we were talking about it one time. I hear that's how my old company did it. And then my next question is, well, why'd you leave your old company? You worked for another company before. And say, well, it sucked working there because blah, 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 blah. So then I got to think, well, wait a minute. So it sucked at your old company and you left there because they wouldn't give you a raise, they weren't profitable, they had all these problems going on in their business. And so you start your own company and then you do everything the same damn way they did it. That's ridiculous. So I hear that one a lot. So why does this not work? Well, we'll talk about that in a minute, but I hear the next question is, how do you set your prices for replacements? And I get a similar thing. I get something like equipment cost times 2 or some number, and then they add labor rates for 8 hours. So they take the $85 an hour, they add it up, and they add like $600 or $700 in labor for 8 hours, and they add it to there, and then they sell it for that. It's like, and again, you cannot grow the business that way, because if you're doing this, and you're getting away with it, it's because of a couple of things. First of all, you're just getting damn lucky. You're damn lucky that the numbers that you're using are letting you limp along at some point to where you haven't gone out of business yet. So that's the number one reason you can get away with it. One of the ways you get lucky is you start doing stuff like stop accounting for things and then make the excuse, I have low overhead or blah, blah, blah. Because as the guy said, well, I don't have any overhead because I just do the work and I don't have any employees and my wife just does the books. So time out, okay? So if you're doing that, you don't actually have a business. What you own is a job. And at some point, you're going to have to end this job, like when you retire or you die or something. Well, what's this thing going to be worth? It's worth absolutely nothing. You're not building anything worth anything to anyone but you. No one wants to buy your job. So you've got to start running your business like it's a real business. And what that means is separate entities. In your brain, you have to separate the fact that there's a business over here that is operating and it needs to make a profit. And then over here, there's you. And you can own it, but you're also an employee of that business. And in this case, so is his wife. So completely ignoring the fact that he doesn't get paid and his wife doesn't get paid. Well, holy crap, any business could be successful if you have employees that don't get paid. He's only got 2 employees, it's him and his wife, and neither one of them gets any damn money. So the business looks like it's a freaking genius, and of course he gets to keep the profit and calls himself a genius of a business owner. Well, no crap. I mean, it's easy to do that if you're not paying anybody as a business, but if you paid yourself a real wage, like you're supposed to, like if you had an employee, then, it wouldn't work. Which, by the way, is probably why somebody says, I don't want to grow because they don't want to deal with all that crap. Well, the fact is, it's still not a business. You've got to operate your thing like it really needs to stand on its own 2 feet. You cannot make a profit at $85 an hour based on the things I'm going to show you in a minute. The reason why I know this to be true is because I look at hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of companies. I've never seen this number work for anybody who's growing or thriving, and I will defy anyone out there to show me a company of over $1 million with more than 3 or 4 employees who can make this number work. There isn't one. It doesn't exist. It hasn't existed since at least the early 90s. So why are we still doing this? It's because people got some stubborn streak that's what they want to do, and then we hear these arguments. Well, I don't want to take advantage of anybody. I don't want to rip anyone off. I want to be honest with people. Dude, you're not being honest with people when your business is losing money and losing value, and you're not being honest with yourself, your family, your heirs, the people who would leave it to, any of that stuff. So it's not, you're not trying to fix equipment. And people are afraid of selling something to people who actually need to buy it. They really need to buy what you have. They need to buy a repair. They need to buy a replacement unit. They need to buy something. If you're afraid of selling stuff, you are in the wrong industry. Go be a school teacher or a police officer or a social worker or something where they don't sell anything to anyone, because in this business, the only solutions come after someone buys something. If you're afraid to ask them to pay you for things because you somehow think it makes you into a bad guy, then you're probably in the wrong business. But how do you do it ethically? By the way, it doesn't have to be dishonest. You can be completely dishonest and be ripping people off at low prices because you're telling them you'll put a Band-Aid on it, you'll do this, you'll do this. Let's face it, a 20-year-old unit now, today, was built in the 2000s. So if it was built in 2005, that's a 15-year-old unit. This is not one that's going to be running for another 15 years. It's just not going to. Let's stop kidding ourselves. And if people need to get new ones, they need to get new ones. If they need to be told the repair is going to cost X, it costs X. It just does. So how do we fix this, okay? First thing that I would do is I would tell you, you have to know your costs. And that means you have to know the real costs of the business as its own entity over here. Not the ones where you're ignoring certain costs and saying you have no low overhead, like, well, I don't pay an office manager, my wife does it. Dude, your wife would not work for anyone else but you without getting a paycheck, and she shouldn't be doing it for you either. I have service tech. He's worth $35-40 an hour. That guy is you, and that guy wouldn't work for free. Know your costs and start figuring them out, what it really takes. Then you got to price for profit. You have to set these numbers up so that they're right. Now, here's where we're going to run into the rub. We're stuck back on this time and material versus flat rate system, right? The argument that comes up for this is that, you know, flat rate doesn't work in my area. Flat rate doesn't work with my kind of customers, whatever. It's complete bullshit. Every single business that's successful is running some kind of flat rate. There's 2 things the customer wants to know. Can you fix it? And number 2, how much is it going to cost? Flat rate handles both of those things. Yes, I can fix it. Here's how much it is. Customers are like, thank you, God. Go ahead and do it. I know the number now. Okay? So why does flat rate become necessary? Let's say this $85 number isn't going to be $85 anymore. And let's say, for the sake of argument, you do have competitors running around still screwing this up and doing it wrong, and they're telling people they're going to do it for some number per hour that sounds really good on the telephone. And you don't want to tell people, hey, I charge $150 an hour or $250 an hour or whatever the heck your number is once you know your cost to set your prices. Once you do that, you're going to set numbers that you think could scare some people. Well, okay, great. So don't tell them those numbers. Just tell them it's a flat rate price, and then they're happy with that answer because that's all they wanted to know anyway. So that's why you go to flat rate. You do this, you build your flat rate, you do the same thing in your installs. How much is an air conditioner? Well, if you sit there with a calculator at their kitchen table, start figuring out numbers, what they're seeing you do is they're just seeing you add this and add this and add this and add this, and they're getting real nervous. While they're getting nervous, they're thinking, man, I'm going to have to call 3 or 4 other companies because I don't know if this guy's got a good calculator. I don't know if he's figuring it out right. I don't know if he's making up a price that takes advantage of me versus one of my neighbors or somebody else he sold it to. But if you have a menu price published because you know your numbers and you did it right, they're not going to matter. They're not going to care as much, and you're going to sell jobs faster. So leads me back around to this conversation I had with this guy I was talking to this week on the phone. And He had run something like 60 service calls in the last couple of months with his own little business, and he hadn't sold one job. He hadn't sold one out of 60 service calls. Now that's almost a statistical impossibility to do that, but it was mostly because of fear. He's afraid of asking the customer and giving them the bad news and asking them for a sale. He's just afraid of it. He told me yesterday, I heard yesterday, that he ran into the dirtiest coil he had ever seen, and he was trying to clean this thing for his customer for like $75. And I was like, $75? First of all, a coil cleaning takes a few hours to do it right. You got to pull it and all that stuff. And if it's literally the dirtiest one you've ever seen, and he'd been doing this industry for like 15 years, if that's the dirtiest one you've ever seen, what are the chances you're actually going to get it clean? And you, well, not really. Like, well, then why would you do that to your grandmother? Would you tell her a clean coil in that case was going to work? No. Well, then why did you tell the customer that that's what's going to work? You have to say you need a new coil, and at that point, because the unit's kind of old, you probably need a new system. Let's just stop kidding ourselves. Bottom line, though, is you cannot, big red thing here, you cannot be doing this. This does not work. If you're still doing this, if you're a small company, please send me a text message. Let me help you figure out how to stop doing this and get your numbers right once and for all. You got about 30 days right now before we get into the busy season, and you want to maximize your year. This can be the year where you stop having a bare scratched out living and actually build a business where the business starts to be worth something, whether you want to grow or not. Look, the fact of the matter is, if your business exists, it has employees. The first employee is you. That employee should get paid, and then the business should still have net profit. That's how it grows. That's how it survives the next economic downturn, whenever the heck that happens. There's a lot of people talking about coronaviruses and downturns and all kinds of stuff. Hey, if that comes up, would you rather be the guy who's barely paying the bills month to month, or would you rather have some money in the bank saying, look, I can figure this out because while everybody else is scrambling to make a buck, we've been profitable and we know how to do that. You have like a couple of weeks to fix this. It doesn't take long to change the way this is. Step 1, know your cost. Step 2, price for profit. And then there's a few more steps in here, which I'm not going to have time to go into right now, but you've got to roll it out so that you're presenting it right to the customers the right way. You got to publish it in a price book that's published, whether it's a book form or whether it's on software of some sort that you're using. But that's what it takes to get this done. If you're having trouble with this, look, if you're still on time and material, let's have that conversation. I'm not going to be mad at you. I know there's nothing wrong with that. But as far as you just haven't been taught why it's not the right way to do it. If you're still charging some low number because you think somehow your area is unique, look, I'm telling you, I talk to people all over the country. It ain't true that your area is somehow unique. It just isn't true. At least I haven't seen it yet. And after hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of companies I talk to. So stop doing this bullshit where your prices are this, because I'll promise you this, the $85, once you know your cost, what is your cost to deliver a technician? Actually, let me perfectly phrase this. What is your business's cost to send a technician like you to those jobs? If you had to hire you, how much would you cost per hour? What are you worth in the marketplace? 25, 30, 40 bucks an hour, whatever the heck your number is. That starts off right there. Then you have to have FICA and the Medicare and all the other stuff for the taxes and stuff on top of that. And then you're not 100% productive. So per billable hour, we're already talking about a company here who's, if 85 bucks an hour, it's already costing $80 or $90 an hour. So you're telling me that your company, your business, is willing to make way less profit than what all these people are saying the minimum wage is supposed to be anymore. I mean, they're talking about they want to make a $15 minimum wage, and you're telling me that your entire business is worth $4 an hour or some silly thing. It's complete bullshit. Let's fix this right now. Send me a message, and we'll talk soon.